We've seen in a recent video how we can use the output node in our BuildShip workflows to return a response back to the outside world. Triggers, on the other hand, are how your BuildShip workflows can receive requests from the outside world. Creating a workflow without a trigger is like locking treasure in a treasure box and throwing away the keys. All jokes aside, in this video, we will explore triggers. We'll discuss what triggers are and how you can connect your workflow with one or even multiple triggers. In BuildShip, a trigger is used to determine how you want to initiate your workflow. Take our weekly news tracker workflow as an example. We've been building this workflow during the course of these videos, and we're almost done with it. But we have one important piece missing. Currently, our workflow has no trigger. That means that there's no way for us to initiate this workflow, so let's change that. To add a trigger to your workflow, you have two options. From the Build tab, you can click this button to add a new connection, or you can just switch to the Connect tab. The Connect tab is where you'll find a list of all the triggers that BuildShip currently supports, and it's where you'll be able to configure any connected triggers. Triggers in BuildShip are broken out into 4 separate groups. First, there's the REST API group. This is useful when you're building API workflows. These are workflows that you'll want to publish and have a accessible API endpoint URL that you can trigger from the outside world. For instance, you can add the REST API call trigger to your workflow, and then you'll be able to invoke your BuildShip trigger by just sending an HTTP request to your workflow endpoint URL. Next, we have integration-related triggers. These are triggers that usually integrate with some third-party API. For example, if you want your workflow to be able to listen for Stripe events, then you can use the Stripe webhook trigger. Integrations trigger will usually require authentication to be able to interact with the third-party API. If we keep scrolling down, we'll find our schedule triggers. Any of these two triggers can be used if you want to schedule the execution of your workflow on a regular basis. And since we're building a weekly news tracker workflow, we'll need to use one of these schedule cron triggers to make sure our workflow executes at a given schedule recurringly. The last type of triggers that we have here are for creating bots. As BuildShip keeps growing, the list of triggers will also grow as well, giving you more options over how you want to kickstart the execution of your workflows. But that's enough with the overview. And now let's see how we can add a trigger to our workflow. For the type of workflow we're building, we'll need to add a schedule trigger. There's an option to set up an interval schedule, but we'll need to use a custom schedule. So we'll select this trigger. We can configure the time zone and schedule. The time zone is currently set to UTC. We'll leave it at that. But as you can see, there's a number of options here. Next, the schedule input is where we specify the cron expression. This cron expression is what will control the schedule of our workflow. We want our workflow to be triggered every week. So we'll just do a Google search for cron job every week. And then we can just select the first link here. And then this is the cron expression we'll want to copy. We'll just copy it. We'll go back to BuildShip, delete the current schedule, and paste in our new cron expression. And now our workflow will trigger on every Sunday. But our trigger is still not connected, so let's connect it. We'll just click the connect button. Once our trigger is connected, you'll see the text connected under the trigger. Perfect. We've now connected our BuildShip workflow with our first trigger. So since this is a scheduled trigger, we'll need to wait until Sunday for our BuildShip workflow to execute. But what if we also want to be able to call our BuildShip workflow via an HTTP request? Then we're in luck because with BuildShip, you can connect multiple triggers to your workflow. To do that, we'll just click Add Trigger. Then we'll select the REST API call trigger. This is the endpoint path, but we'll change this to something different. Next, we can configure the HTTP method to use. We'll leave it at post, but you can see the other HTTP methods supported here. There's some advanced options where you can control the type of request that you want to accept. By default, we have the JSON content type set, and we'll leave it set to that. Now, all we need to do is connect our trigger. Perfect. And now we have two triggers connected to our weekly news tracker workflow. The first trigger we connected is the custom schedule cron trigger. This will make it so that our BuildShip workflow will run on every Sunday. Next, we added the REST API call trigger, and this will make it so that whenever we ship and deploy our BuildShip workflow, we'll get a workflow endpoint URL that we can use to kickstart the execution of our workflow. So when we go back to the Build tab, we can now see that we have two triggers connected here. Our weekly news tracker workflow is just about completed. And the last thing that we need to do is ship and deploy our workflow. In the next video, we'll talk about how you can ship and deploy your BuildShip workflows, and we'll see an example of how we can call our weekly news tracker workflow from the outside world by sending an HTTP request to our workflow endpoint URL.